For me, instruction is goal-driven activity. So if somebody says, well, I want just people to learn and I don't have any goals, then it's not instruction as far as I'm concerned. It's learning, of course, because we learn no matter what. But instruction for me is when you deliberately set up an environment or a product that's designed to facilitate learning, to make it more efficient, effective, and engaging. And so is design. So I guess I see them as synonymous.
I think that for me as an instructional designer, is one of the things that I think designers need to have is that ability to identify the problem. I think the identification of the problem is it's more important than just about anything.
Every design problem that comes to us has many sub-problems that need to be solved. If we can look at our design in terms of these, what I call layers of the design, we find that we solve a bunch of individual problems which then integrate together into one coherent design.
Of course, analysis. I mean, you can never do enough analysis, I think, because as researchers, we know that, you do a study once and then you do it again a couple of years later and you come up with different results. And so analysis, you just have to keep analyzing the learning situation. I always approach design, I guess, from a broader level, and so I always will go in there by looking, okay, who's my target audience, and what's my content, what am I teaching on, what am I training on, what are the learning outcomes.
Always start with the learner, always. How I looked at this was I started with the learner in the call center in Chicago, and I went backward. How are we going to get them there? I always start with the learner.
I realized I would do much better and be much more effective and efficient in designing instruction if I did it with the end in mind. So it's kind of a Stephen Covey principle or engineering principle in many ways. So I think, my principles are knowing what's educational, knowing what's performance-based, reverse engineering, knowing how to separate out the process from the technology and approaches.
I listen and ask a lot of questions and try to get a sense for the interests, the powers that be, the powers, invested interests and powerful interests, and their goals and needs in the situation. Kind of in very broad strokes sketch out the situation of what has to happen.
I actually went home and I flip charted and I had Post-its and I looked at, and I visually drew it out, the 5 centers and what had to happen and what was the end result, and then what was all of the missing pieces in between. That's how I knew. And I was learning as I was going and making changes as I was going too.
The first thing I do is I look for the constraints that have been placed on the project. Those constraints are the key to design. For instance, your boss comes in and says, you're going to have 3 videotapes by Friday. Well, there are some constraints that have been placed. Not only a time constraint, but more importantly, a medium constraint.
You're not going to go out and be designers, even though we're training you to be designers. You're going to go out and be managers, and you're going to work with designers by assignment. And the designers by assignment are probably subject matter experts or personnel managers or somebody else who never had an instructional design class in their life, and they're going to actually do your design, and you're going to be a manager not doing any design. And so I said, it seems to me the big challenge is, can we create tools for designers by assignment that they can use that will give them intellectual leverage?
When you look at the scale of projects in corporations or federal government, I mean, those are huge. It's just huge. And there's a lot of other things that we don't know. I mean, mostly it's the project management aspect and managing the expectations and the scope and the problem space, and everybody wants to have their say, and so how do you make sense out of all that is very challenging.
It's taking people's language and figuring out how you turn it into something that they want people to do, some way they want people to change. I've had clients come in and say, I need a 3-day training course that'll motivate my people. And all they know is that they have pain. And particularly in America, education is the balm that cures any pain. And so they just know they want it fixed, and they know they have pain, but they also jump to a solution. And as I've said in many classes I teach, you know, an instructional designer is not unlike a surgeon or a doctor, and just because somebody comes in and says, I need a 3-day training course that's going to motivate people, you don't say, okay, I'll give you a 3-day training course that's going to motivate people. You say, okay, I can help you. How is it hurting? Where is it hurting? Let me find out. And I find out, oh, it's just this little part.
Keeping the quality up with the resources that you've got. And usually resources are, you don't have much time and you don't have that much money, and you've got to make compromises, not just in your models and theories, but in, you know, what you do. And so, you know, keeping the quality respectably acceptable within the constraints.